Jimmy Swaggart was like a superhero of the televangelism world. He had this amazing ability to draw people in with his powerful speeches and soul-stirring music. He was like a magnet, pulling you into his world of faith and passion. But beneath all the glitz and glory, there was a darker side to his story. Despite his incredible success, Jimmy had some personal struggles and moral issues that eventually caught up with him. Let's uncover the twists and turns of his journey from triumph to turmoil. Jimmy Lee Swaggart came into this world in Faraday, Louisiana, on March 15, 1935, into a musical family. Willie Leon Swaggart, better known as Son or Son, was a Pentecostal pastor and a violin prodigy. Minnie Heron, his mother, was from a long line of sharecroppers in the South. The intermarrying of cousins and in-laws in the Swaggart family created a tight-knit community, like a tightly wound ball of rubber bands. Swaggart found ties to famous musicians in this web of relatives. Among them were Mickey Gilley, a country music legend, and Jerry Lee Lewis, a cousin of Swaggart's. The family history was enriched by Jeanette Enninger, who was Swaggart's sister. Growing up in the loving arms of the Assemblies of God in Faraday and Wisner, Swaggart was fully steeped in Pentecostal practices. He honed his musical abilities in this sacred space, sometimes sharing the stage with his father, a minister at the nearby Assembly of God Church. At the tender age of 17, Swaggart wed Frances Anderson, a fellow churchgoer he had met at Wisner's House of Worship in 1952. Their marriage was a symbol of the triumphs and tragedies they had endured together. Swaggart started performing his musical abilities to non-churchgoers while he worked odd jobs to support his little family. He sang Southern gospel tunes at several different churches. In his book To Cross a River, Jimmy Lee Swaggart recounts the hardships endured by his family in the 1950s, when they were all surviving on $30 a week, the equivalent of $300 today, and overcoming many obstacles. They seldom stayed in one place for more than a few months at a time, since they were constantly relocating to cheaper accommodation and the basements of churches where pastors lived. Swaggart was given a tempting opportunity during these trials. One of the goals of Sun Records' legendary producer Sam Phillips was to increase the label's diversity by releasing gospel music. Since Swaggart's cousin Jerry Lee Lewis was having tremendous success with Sun Records, Phillips thought Swaggart would be a good fit for his company as well. The offer ensured Swaggart's financial stability by giving him the chance to earn a substantial income for his family. Nevertheless, Swaggart's life was irrevocably altered by a catastrophic choice he made. He was so certain that he was called to something more than himself that he turned down Phillips's offer, even if fame and fortune were tempting him. Swaggart felt his true calling was as a pastor, not an entertainer. His unwavering devotion to his vocation as a gospel preacher and his deep faith informed this choice. An enduring motif throughout Swaggart's life was his steadfast unwillingness to sacrifice his principles for the sake of material wealth. In the years that followed, he persevered through many personal and professional catastrophes while maintaining his faith. When Jimmy Lee Swaggart embarked on his full-time evangelistic ministry in 1955, he had little more than a flatbed trailer that had been provided. He began his ministry from a very modest background, yet he went on to explore the American South and win over many believers there. It was the beginning of an epic journey to save souls and provide hope to the people. More and more, Swaggart was known for his fiery sermons and magnetic public speaking, and he expanded his sphere of influence accordingly. He first appeared on record in 1960, releasing gospel songs that he hoped would provide spiritual solace to listeners. He laid the framework for what would later become a huge multimedia ministry by simultaneously using the airwaves to broadcast his message of redemption and faith via Christian radio stations. In 1961, the Assemblies of God formally acknowledged Swaggart's dedication and zeal for his calling by ordaining him. He began his ministry at this turning point, setting him on the road to greater notoriety and influence among evangelicals. After building the Family Worship Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana in the late 1960s, Swaggart's vision continued to grow. A flourishing church community based on faith and worship emerged from what started as a little congregation. With the strengthening of ties to the Assemblies of God, the Church solidified its position within the larger context of Pentecostal Christianity. The 1971 introduction of Swaggart's nationally syndicated show was another bold step forward for the artist. His show, which was broadcast on several Baton Rouge television stations, captivated viewers with inspiring themes of redemption and new beginnings. Swaggart bought a local AM radio station, WLUU, and used it to broadcast a variety of Christian content, including feature stories and passionate sermons, appealing to a wide range of fundamentalist and Pentecostal congregations. This allowed him to further spread his influence on the airways. Gospel music also gained popular on the program, bringing inspiration and serenity to listeners. As the media and technological landscapes shifted in the 1980s and 1990s, Swaggart's ministry adapted to meet the new challenges. He wisely decided to sell off most of his radio stations as he saw the tide turning, freeing him to focus on his mission of sharing the gospel with the world. In the face of all the challenges that the contemporary world threw at him, Swaggart remained steadfast in his commitment to preaching the gospel of God's love and salvation. When Jimmy Lee Swaggart made the transition to television in 1975, his ministry had grown to include several stations nationwide. The vast potential of television as a medium for the dissemination of Swaggart's message led him to make it his primary platform for preaching the gospel. The weekly webcast was increased to an hour in 1978, allowing Swaggart to go more deeply into his teachings and establish a more personal connection with his listeners. A period of innovation and growth for Swaggart's ministry began in the 1980s. In 1980, he launched a weekday show that would feed viewers' souls with spiritual nourishment and encouragement via music and Bible study. Services from Swaggart's Family Worship Center and other locations, as well as on-site crusades in large cities around the nation, were featured in the hour-long weekend broadcast. By using this dual strategy, Swaggart was able to stay on the radio all week long, meeting the diverse needs of his audience. The 1980s were a banner year for Swaggart's television broadcasts, which eventually reached every major city in the nation. The powerful themes of redemption and faith conveyed in the broadcasts resonated with viewers of various backgrounds. In 1983, Swaggart's television ministry reached more than 250 stations nationwide, guaranteeing that his message could be heard in homes all throughout the nation. Evangelical Christianity was on the rise in the 1980s, and religious programs on television was becoming more influential, both of which were echoed in Swaggart's television ministry. Swaggart's charismatic personality and energetic manner of preaching captivated listeners, drawing them into his ministry and rekindling their passion for spiritual matters. In support of the national resistance movement in Mozambique, a turning point in American religious history, the arrival of Jimmy Swaggart Ministries caused ripples in both the spiritual and political spheres, and it occurred within the vibrant evangelical milieu of the 1980s. Swaggart became quite powerful and influential as evangelical zeal spread throughout the nation. Amidst the fervor of religious fervor, Swaggart became embroiled in controversy because of his association with the Mozambique National Resistance, a faction entangled in the 15-year brutal civil conflict that engulfed Mozambique. Swaggart Ministries was a surprising ally for the Mozambican National Resistance, who were accused of horrific war crimes throughout the conflict. The ministry offered spiritual assistance and also functioned as a public relations platform. Accusations surfaced, suggesting that Swaggart Ministries provided the organization with more than just financial and material assistance. When government troops, with help from Zimbabwe, captured Casa Banana, the Mozambican National Resistance's principal stronghold, in September 1985, the extent of this cooperation became shockingly apparent. Pileups of Swaggart's 1982 book, How to Receive the Baptism in the Holy Spirit, translated into Portuguese, were among the startling discoveries found among the rubble. This revelation sparked inquiries during the 1988 conviction of Australian missionary Ian Gray, who was instrumental in coordinating private assistance for the Mozambican National Resistance. Swaggart Ministries, a front for Shekinah Ministries, was allegedly complicit in facilitating assistance to the Mozambican National Resistance. The claims, however, were drowned out and pushed to the periphery of public opinion in the deluge of media coverage that year because to Swaggart's participation in a scandal. Still, in 1991, the Zimbabwean government and Covert Action magazine refiled accusations against Swaggart Ministries, claiming that they were providing ongoing financial support to the Mozambican national resistance. These claims cast doubt on Swaggart's evangelical empire and brought to light unethical questions about his participation in international wars that were clearly not related to his pulpit. The contentious relationship between Swaggart and the Mozambican national resistance in the 1980s brought attention to the intricate relationship between religion, politics, and humanitarianism within the evangelical American movement. The gospel of love and righteousness that Swaggart proclaimed from his televised pulpit seemed at odds with his association with a group that was implicated in significant human rights abuses in the eyes of many onlookers. In spite of the accusations and the following investigation, Swaggart maintained his enormous media empire and his mighty position in the evangelical world. His television ministry became his primary platform by the mid-1970s, giving him national and international fame as a prominent figure in American Christianity and reaching millions of people. As his popularity and the reach of his message continued to rise in the 1980s, Swaggart expanded his reach even further by launching a regular weekday show that combined music and Bible study. His hour-long weekend programs often featured services from Swaggart's Family Worship Center or crusades held in major cities. Jimmy Swaggart is one of the most controversial and well-known figures in American evangelicalism. His charismatic personality and fervent preaching brought him to the height of Christian greatness, but the scandals that rocked his ministry are what really brought his reputation down to earth. The charges of prostitution and the dramatic public confession were part of one such issue that served as a stark reminder of the complexities that arise when religion and human frailty intersect. The beginning of Swaggart's demise was his bitter rivalry with Marvin Gorman, another preacher of the Assembly of God, which began in 1986. The unintentional cascade of circumstances that led to the demise of both men's careers was started in motion by Swaggart when he accused Gorman of infidelity in his marriage. After being almost excommunicated from the Assemblies of God and deprived of his ministerial credentials, Gorman retaliated by suing Swaggart for defamation and conspiracy. After a protracted court struggle, a substantial judgment was rendered against Swaggart, with Gorman being granted a sum of $10 million in damages, but this amount was reduced to $1.75 million in a later settlement. Gorman planned a clandestine operation to reveal Swaggart's own immoralities in an effort to get revenge for what he saw as a horrific injustice. Gorman accused Randy, his son, and Garland Bilbo, his son-in-law, of spying on Swaggart. Metairie is a suburb of New Orleans, and their inquiry took them to the Travel Inn on Airline Highway. Outside Room 7, they found evidence that implicated Swaggart with Deborah Murray, a local prostitute. In front of Swaggart, Gorman laid the framework for a confrontation that would reverberate across evangelical circles, armed with this terrible proof. Gorman allegedly made a deal with Swaggart, giving him a second chance at salvation in return for public apologies and an attempt to repair Gorman's standing within the Assemblies of God in an effort to stem the growing crisis. Recognizing a chance to salvage his image, Swaggart reluctantly agreed to the conditions, but on the day when Swaggart had pledged to apologize, he remained quiet, compelling Gorman to act. Gorman told James Hamill, a leader in the Assemblies of God, about Swaggart's affair with the escort on February 16, 1988, setting in motion a series of events that ultimately led to Swaggart's downfall. The revelation of Swaggart's wrongdoing sent shockwaves across the evangelical community and beyond. After Murray failed a polygraph test administered by a specialist from the New York City Police Department, her credibility came into doubt. Her already turbulent situation becomes even more complicated, as questions about her motives and honesty cast doubt on the nature of her connection with Swaggart. Penthouse magazine and others took advantage of the juicy details in Murray's story to make sensational headlines despite her denials of guilt. Nevertheless, the incident would be defined in the public view by Swaggart's confession that was shown on television on February 21, 1988. In front of a captivated television audience in his family's church, Swaggart sobbed and admitted his misdeeds without going into detail. His heartfelt supplications for mercy and grace, interspersed with fervent requests for pardon, touched many. and served as a tragic reminder of how frail human beings are. Even after he publicly apologized, Swaggart's issues persisted. In spite of his heartfelt confession, the Assemblies of God proceeded to escalate his suspension to the standard 2-year sentence for immorality. Ultimately, they defrosted him and severed all ties to his ministry. With unwavering determination, Swaggart embarked on a fresh journey by establishing the Baton Rouge, Louisiana-based Jimmy Swaggart Ministries and the Sun Life Broadcasting Network. Outside of denominational control, these groups gave him a platform to carry on his mission. The haunting image of Swaggart, who wept as he confessed his transgressions, will always serve as a cautionary tale about the perils of unbridled vanity and the weight of one's own moral shortcomings. An example of the power of religion in trying times, there is a glimmer of hope for restoration and redemption among the shame and disgrace. Anyone, believer or not, may learn a lesson from Swaggart's experience, which is emblematic of the televangelist scandals that rocked the late 80s. This incident highlights the fact that those in authoritative religious roles are not exempt from the constraints imposed by being human. Once again caught with an escort, Jimmy Swaggart's terrible path took a catastrophic turn on October 11, 1991. The event took place in Indio, California, when a police officer pulled Swaggart over for allegedly driving on the incorrect side of the road. Rosemary Garcia, who met with Swaggart and subsequently informed reporters about their encounter, said that he had accused her of infidelity when they were sitting side by side on the road. "He requested stuff from me," she explained, "so that's why he intervened and stopped me. I take care of it." Unlike his first transgression, Swaggart opted not to directly confront his congregation about this most recent transgression. "I am an escort." Instead, he delivered a brief lecture at the Family Worship Center stating, "The Lord told me it's flat, none of your business." This abrupt denial of responsibility marked a reversal from his previous public admissions and suggested a shift in his approach to addressing personal inadequacies. Donnie, who is the son of Swaggart, stood up in the pulpit after the scandal and made a heartfelt speech to the crowd. He let them know that his dad would be resigning as pastor of Jimmy Swaggart Ministries while he sought therapy and rehabilitation. This choice drove home how serious the issue was and how urgent it was that Swaggart deal with the fallout from his actions as well as the reasons for his repeated moral lapses. The effects of Swaggart's second encounter with prostitutes extended far beyond his ministry and onto the Christian community at large. It cast doubt on his capacity to lead the church and ruined his legacy. As a result of having to face the fact that their spiritual leader was human and that his actions had consequences for their faith, many of his disciples experienced an epiphany. In the middle of the subsequent mayhem, Swaggart found himself at a crossroads, discussing the consequences of his choices and how to go ahead. He had a turning point in his life when he decided to step down as minister. It was a realization that he needed to change for the better, and a resolve to seek forgiveness from God and his church. Everyone was waiting impatiently to see what happened to the disgraced preacher in the future as Swaggart began a path of self-reflection and healing away from the limelight. Scandals that rocked Jimmy Swaggart's ministry in the 80s and 90s affected his career and reputation for years to come. Dealing with the aftermath while trying to save what was left of his once thriving ministry put Swaggart at a crossroads as the dust cleared. Swaggart continued to pursue his goal of using television to promote the gospel despite the harm to his reputation. His groundbreaking concept for a television program that included musical performances, short sermons, and updates on missionary initiatives was presented to Nashville, Tennessee producers in 1973. Jimmy Swaggart was created after the producers agreed with his idea, much to his delight. In a matter of weeks, the show became nationally syndicated, catapulting Swaggart to televangelist fame. The success of his show encouraged Swaggart to expand his audience in 1981 with the launch of a second daily program, A Study in the Word. This program, which ran on cable networks like CBN, TBN, and the PTL network, gave viewers deep insights and teachings from the Bible and further solidified Swaggart's reputation as an engaging preacher and theologian. Despite Swaggart's remarkable rise, he faced obstacles along the way. He persisted in preaching and broadcasting his message of salvation and redemption despite the losses in 1988. Nevertheless, Swaggart's standing as a conventional televangelist was severely diminished by the cloud of controversy that descended around him in 1991. After a second prostitution incident, additional local TV stations severed ties with Swaggart, causing his once thriving television empire to fall apart and putting him in a position where he had to face the fallout of his actions and the loss of public confidence. Swaggart sought to redirect his ministry throughout the turmoil. To further his evangelical cause and educate the next generation of pastors, he established Jimmy Swaggart Bible College in 1984. Aspiring pastors flocked to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College, where he and his faculty offered degrees in communication and education, and enrollment skyrocketed. Nevertheless, Jimmy Swaggart Bible College's standing and enrollment figures took a major hit due to the issues that surrounding Swaggart in 1988. Concerns about accreditation and a precipitous decline in enrollment occurred as a consequence of students' mass exodus from the institution after seeing their mentor's downfall. In 1991, Jimmy Swaggart Bible College changed its name to World Evangelism Bible College after undergoing a number of reforms to survive the storm. The college has to make tough choices regarding academic programs and personnel due to persistent enrollment reduction, despite attempts to revitalize the institution. Jimmy Swaggart Bible College has gone through a major reduction in staff and the closure of once thriving departments by the year's end, 1991. The devastation of Swaggart's plans to build an evangelical educational institution washed over him, and he was left with the harsh truth of his diminished impact and the stain of scandal that would forever accompany his name. Jimmy Swaggart and Frances Swaggart were wed on October 10, 1952. Jimmy was born Francis Anderson on August 9, 1930. On October 18, 1954, they welcomed a son named Donnie into the world. Jimmy Swaggart's brother Donnie passed away while he was quite young, and the name Donnie is a moving tribute to him. Thanks to Donnie, the Swaggart lineage lives on through 3 generations of grandkids and great-grandchildren. The spiritual history of the Swaggart family dates back generations of service. Both Donnie and Gabriel Swaggart have followed in their father's footsteps and embraced the call to preach. This line of preachers is a holy tradition carried on by 4 generations of Swaggarts who have devoted their lives to serving God. In 2007, Jimmy Swaggart Ministries reached out to a vast audience via several events and locations, serving as a source of spiritual guidance and encouragement. The Family Worship Center is its beating heart, a place of worship and prayer for Christians. The Jimmy Swaggart broadcast, an integral part of the ministry's outreach efforts, is one of many media outlets in addition to this particular congregation. By presenting the teachings of Jimmy Swaggart and his esteemed guests to a wide audience, radio and television shows such as A Study in the Word and the Sun Life Radio Network assist in spreading the ministry's message. The ministry's reach is extended to all corners of the globe via its dedicated website, which acts as a resource and information center in the digital realm. The Sun Life Broadcasting Network is an integral part of the ministry's multimedia presence. It is a 24-hour cable and satellite television network. Live broadcasts of services at the Family Worship Center, enlightening Bible studies, and motivational talks given by many famous speakers are just a few of the many programs available to viewers on SBN. An acclaimed personality in her own right, Frances Swaggart lends her voice to the ministry via her daily SBN program, Frances and Friends. The show facilitates fellowship and discussion among Christians, building a feeling of community. But Jimmy Swaggart is still very much engaged in ministry. He hosts The Message of the Cross on SBN every day, a Bible study program that is known for its in-depth analysis of Scripture and serves as a lighthouse of spiritual enlightenment for people all across the globe. Donnie Swaggart, who is Jimmy's son, is prominent in the ministry and often preaches in addition to his career in television, attending services at Family Worship Center and providing pastoral care to churches all across the world. Likewise, Gabriel Swaggart, who is both the son of Donnie and the pastor of the ministry's youth ministry at Crossfire Family Worship Center, is a model of youthful zeal and commitment. Jimmy Swaggart has been the pastor of Family Worship Center since 2023, and he has encouraged his congregation members and Christians all around the globe to embrace the life-changing power of God's love. His unwavering commitment to the ministry is a reflection of the deep-seated religious values held by the Swaggart family. From charity, to music, to television, to religious debate, to personal issues, Jimmy Swaggart's legacy is an extraordinary tale full of accomplishments, controversies, and problems. His legacy is characterized by a commitment to have a beneficial impact on the world via his artistic pursuits, humanitarian work, and engagement with ethical and religious matters. Those in need all throughout the globe have found hope, help, and resources via Swaggart's ministry, which has left an indelible mark on countless lives. The charitable work that Jimmy Swaggart did is one of the most prominent parts of his legacy. His ministry's long history of giving has helped fund outreach initiatives and orphanages in Haiti, Uganda, and Mexico. The children in poverty have been given a shot at a better future via these initiatives, which have provided them with shelter, education, and healthcare. Additionally, Swaggart's group has been a leader in disaster relief efforts, rallying resources to assist regions hit by catastrophic events. Those in need have been provided with food, housing, and medical care by Swaggart's ministry in the aftermath of natural disasters like floods, earthquakes, and hurricanes. More than just short-term relief efforts, Swaggart's ministry has been actively involved in community-building activities to assist people in towns improve their quality of life. Communities now have the means to prosper autonomously, thanks to initiatives like water purification systems, job readiness programs, and agricultural development initiatives. Since Swaggart's charitable contributions aim to address systemic problems with long-term sustainable solutions, they have a lasting impact on the communities that receive them. Jimmy Swaggart is famous for both his charitable work and the evangelical music he helped create. His impactful CDs, which consist of praise and worship music, have garnered him several Grammy nominations and Dove Award recognition. Listeners from various walks of life find comfort, motivation, and spiritual sustenance in Swaggart's music. Swaggart has left an indelible mark on Christian music with his musical prowess, and his legacy serves as an inspiration to artists and listeners alike. Swaggart has also received acclaim and admiration from his peers in Christian broadcasting for his creative use of television to spread the gospel. The message of salvation, hope, and faith that he shares on his broadcasts reaches millions of people all over the globe. As a testament to his groundbreaking work in Christian radio, Swaggart was honored with an induction into the Religious Radio Hall of Fame. The legacy of Jimmy Swaggart, nevertheless, is fraught with debate and difficulty. His every move has been investigated and scolded for his immorality and private transgressions throughout his career. His credibility has taken a hit, and the honesty of church officials has been cast into doubt due to public scandals. Swaggart is still looking for atonement in his personal and professional life despite all of these setbacks. Amidst hardship, his path to reconciliation and repentance exemplifies the transformative power of grace and forgiveness. Your time here is appreciated. Until our next video, take care.